Okay, we're good. We're live. We're ready to go. So, welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. This, as the title says, this is the driver introduction for the upcoming new seasons of RPL racing, being F1 Tier 2 entering its 8th season under the Tier 2 moniker, but 12th under its history, and F2 going into Season 16 under its banner. I am your host, Titan Ironwolf, and I will be going over with all of you the drivers that will be taking part in in the upcoming season's races. So, we will kick things off with F1 Tier 2. After a strong, dominating performance by Tadpole in Tier 2 Season 7, resulting in his World Drivers' Championship, and Red Bull's continued dominance in the RPL Tier 2 constructor standings. The question is what can the teams offer to challenge the Red Bull team? So, let us begin with the first team on our list, beginning with Mercedes. Now, Mercedes-Benz has gone through a number of changes with a new driver lineup and under new management. After a unique and a somewhat questionable run as team principal, Wavy Knife has been removed from power as team principal of Mercedes, and his co-team principal, Josh H., has also been relieved of his duties as co-TP. The helm of team principal has been taken over by George, aka Groggers, along with new co-TP being Alpine Academy driver Jack Miles. But in regards to Mercedes itself, its two drivers is a driver that moved from Red Bull Academy to Mercedes in the form of Fanflo, who will be doing a one-season deal with the Mercedes team before moving to Alfa Romeo in F1 Season 9. He will be joined by latecomer to Tier 2 last season, Joe Wilson. Now we're Mercedes, fresh off of being in 4th in the Constructors' Championship, falling to Alpine. Question is, can the Silver Arrows regain their top 3 former glory? Now we move on to Red Bull. A prominent and dominating favorite in the Tier 2 constructor scene, Red Bull seeks to continue that dominance with an all-new driver lineup. Tadpole winds up moving up to Formula 1, racing in the AlphaTauri, while one of his partners, Rakes, goes to reserve and replaced by late newcomer to the Red Bull car, Jacksta, who is going to be entering a full-time season with the Red Bull car. His teammate is Lewis Piper, a driver that had occasional spells in an F1 AlphaTauri, and now he is in the Red Bull Tier 2 car. Question is, can Red Bull continue that dominance? Now we move to Scuderia Ferrari. Now, Ferrari, fresh off of another second place finish in the constructors' standings, Ferrari seems to look for a driver lineup to take the helm and challenge the Red Bull duo. Returning back to Ferrari for another season is Instinct, who finished second in the Drivers' Championship last season, and he is partnered by W.O.R. Lewis, who moved from Mercedes Academy in a trade a few weeks ago to the Ferrari team. He participated in the last 2 races in F1 Tier 2 last Season 7, where he went on to win the 2 races he appeared in. So there is a good chance that WOR Lewis and Instinct could be a formidable threat to the Constructors' Championship. Now, on to McLaren. McLaren changes up with an all-new lineup for Tier 2 Season 8. First up is today Tommy, who transfers from Alfa Romeo to the McLaren outfit. He is then joined by another driver that moved from a different academy, Jack SCFC, who moved from Aston Martin to McLaren. Now, unfortunately, McLaren had a dismal Tier 2 last season, finishing 9th in the Constructors, so all eyes are wondering on if the new pairing can increase their odds in the Constructors' title hunt. Now moving on to Alpine. Alpine has switched up one of its drivers as Bonky has found himself out of a seat, while his teammate Will has been re-signed to the Alpine team for the next season. But his teammate is none other... let me just check, make sure it's right. Yes. Okay, so his teammate is Tier 2 Season 4 champion Owen, who had some occasional spells in the run at McLaren in F1, where he's had somewhat moderate success, but now back with him back in Tier 2, we're wondering what a prior champion can do in a midfield team. Now we move on to AlphaTauri. Playing a small, considerate season, finishing 5th in the Constructors' Championship, AlphaTauri moves with a new lineup for the upcoming season. Their first driver is FGE Stenner, who moved from reserve role to racing full-time in AlphaTauri. His teammate is, well, a driver that was new to RPL a few weeks ago, being Slap Up, who previously raced under the Williams F1 banner. He has moved over to AlphaTauri Tier 2, and Slap Up is looking to hone his skills and maybe rise up back into F1. Now we move on to Aston Martin. Aston Martin has had a roller coaster season so far, finishing 8th in the Constructors, but they also have a new lineup for one driver and a new lineup for the upcoming season. First up is FBL, who previously raced under McLaren in F1 Tier 2. He is now in Aston Martin, and he is joined by Ferrari Academy Reserve Super Liam. So, with Liam looking for a full-time drive, he is in the Aston Martin and looking to hone his skills in that car. And seeing with the lineup, well, it's safe to say, who knows what Aston Martin can do in the midfield. Aston Martin, not Aston Martin, we are in Williams. Now, Williams has an entirely brand new lineup and looking to improve themselves after a perennial last place finish last season. Now, the drivers in there is Ferrari Academy F1 Tier 2 driver Bourbon, who raced in Ferrari, went to reserve and raced in F2. He is now in Williams, and his teammate is brand new RPL newcomer TTL Devil. So a Tier 2 rookie with a Tier 2 veteran, this will be a unique pairing in this upcoming Tier 2 season. Alfa Romeo. Now with Alfa Romeo, they wound up finishing 7th in the Constructors, just being beaten out by their sister team of Haas. And with a unique lineup, this is what Alfa Romeo is willing to offer. Although he raced in Ferrari for most of Tier 2 Season 7 last season, Fast Gerard has moved to Alfa Romeo after inconsistent finishes while in the Ferrari car. He has partnered with Ties F1, a returning driver from a month prior. This new lineup, we'll see what these two are willing to do in the Tier 2 division. Lastly, Haas. Now, unlike all the other drivers that had a new driver lineup or one driver being changed, Haas is the only team to retain both drivers that they had from last season. That being the man, the myth, the legend, Leon Minor, and Blue Gaggi. Those two are what now. It's willing to see what those two are capable of in the mid/back field, but as the only team to race in to stay retained for the next season, it will be interesting to see what those drivers are capable of doing. Now, I won't be bringing up the graphic here because it's going to be a bit confusing, but the calendar for Tier 2 is where things are going to be interesting. So, the first race, now we've had there are a couple repeats in the Season 8 calendar, but it brings a lot of different tracks into the mixture. So we kick it off with an 11-round calendar, kicking off with Melbourne for the season opener. And then it ends with Abu Dhabi as the Season 8 finale. The rest of the races in between, in particular order from round 2 to 10, is Shanghai, Portimao, Jeddah, Red Bull Ring, Miami, Suzuka, Singapore, Mexico, and Circuit of the Americas. So, with a huge change in some drivers and a different dynamic on what will be happening, this Tier 2 season could be a good mixture of in the top 3 teams and in the midfield. F1 Tier 2 kicks off Season 8 Friday at 8 p.m. UK. I hope there's a streamer for this, but if there is a stream, you will catch it on the RPL Twitch channel at twitch.tv/RPL_XB1. Now that we have completed the RPL Tier 2 season, we now move on to F2. Now, F2 has had multiple driver changes, some new faces, and some unique leaves. This is what RPL F2 stands for in regards to Season 16. It is the final mark to see which drivers will be rising up the ladder from F2 to seeing if some drivers can get themselves into F1. So, let's take a look at the drivers that will be participating in F2 Season 16. Now, a disclaimer. We do not have the constructor's mark for F2 Season 15, as currently a couple drivers, as 2 drivers from the season finale last season, are currently under question on if they will be keeping their finish or not. So that's a disclaimer. We do not have the information for that at this time. So let's kick it off with Prima. Now, Prima has mixed up their roster for this season, kicking off with the co-team principal of the Red Bull Academy, ETSR Layton. He will be partnered by Ads, who occasionally was reserved last season, but now is entering a full-time F2 drive. Now, Ads is a previous Tier 2 winner, and Layton a past F2 winner, so we'll see what these former winners can possibly do in regards to F2 Season 16. Virtuosi Racing. Now, Virtuosi won a Constructors' Championship last season with Luke and Jack Miles leading the helm for that team, and is the first Constructors' Championship for the team principal, brand new, Festive Jim Bob. And speaking of new, Virtuosi has a full-blown new lineup, with Luke not racing this season, and Jack Miles moving to Mercedes Academy, taking the helm of Co-TP, and a team that we will get to later. Virtuosi has gone to a new lineup. First up is Wiso, a driver that returned to RPL competition a few weeks prior. He is joined by another RPL newcomer, that being Alex Fox Johnson, who has been making a tear in the last 2 weeks in RPL F1. It'll be interesting to see if these two will be working together to see if possibly Virtuosi could be looking for another Constructors title. Now we move on to Carlin. Now, Carlin retained one of its drivers for this season while getting a swap for the second driver. The driver that was kept is Tadpole, who, as mentioned prior, is the Tier 2 Season 7 champion. He is joined by Valkyrie, who reserved and raced full-time in Prima last season. So, a combination of a grizzled vet and a sort of newcomer. It'll be an interesting dynamic between these two drivers. High Tech GP. Like said, following Wavy and Josh H's removal from power as team principal and co-team principal, George and Jack have been figuring out to revamp and revitalize the Mercedes F2 field, and High Tech is no different. Leading the helm is PR Bourbon, who moved from Trident last season to be in the High Tech car. He is partnered by ULM Kieran, a current RPL F1 Aston Martin driver. Now, Kieran has made appearances in F2 last season, and this is his first full-time foray season into F2. ART Grand Prix. Now, ART also had a switch up in its roster as well. Blonde, who was a driver in High Tech last season, gets switched to ART, and he will be partnered by the co-team principal of Mercedes and F2 Season 8 champion Jack Miles. Now, with a prior F2 champion and Blonde being a Tier 2 champion who's actually been on more of a rampage last season, coming on the podium in the last few races, it'll be unique to see on if ART can rise to prominence yet again. We're skipping MP because they are not involved this year. Campos Racing. Now, Campos has had a unique spell in regards to racing. They were right around in the backfield, last known in the F2 constructor standings last season, but now they have a different lineup. The first driver, the former team principal of Mercedes, Wavy Knife, he is joining the Campos team, last being seen in ART last season, and he is being partnered with F2 Season 9 champion Beatnik. Now the question is I'm willing to see if Beatnik could try to revitalize his championship glory like he had so many seasons ago. Now we move on to Dams. Now Dams last season was pretty much hanging quiet in the upper stage of the constructors, but then had a resurgence in the final race with VLE Term / AMS Term winning both races in the finale of Brazil last season. He is retained being in Dams for that year, and he is joined by Scyther, a multi-time RPL champion. Now this team, in my opinion, Scyther and Term working together, I think in my opinion, Dams is going to be the dark horse and the team to watch for F2 Season 16. Trident. Now, Trident has one driver retained for the season, with a returning driver making up the second spot. The retained driver is Corey Marshall, who has been making appearances in RPL F1, racing in Alfa Romeo. He is joined by Fernando Borges, otherwise known under his old alias of Dasher, who returned to RPL competition a few weeks ago and is returning to a new full-time season in F2. Charus Racing System. Following the retirement of lengthy Tier F2 driver Titan Ironwolf, Charus has got himself a brand new lineup for the field. First up is TSR Cryptic, who is in F1 in Alfa Romeo after being removed from his role in Red Bull. Now he is back in F2 racing in Charus. And his partner is Mythic, who moves from Campos Racing to the Charus outfit. Now this will be interesting to see what these two will do, and seeing where they will go in the constructors. Now finally, our last team is Van Amersfoort Racing. Now Van Amersfoort in Season 15, this was their debut season in RPL, and they are in it for their second season despite finishing last in their first season. Now with Jack and Groggers thinking of a good lineup to be in their field, they have their pair. That being Tier 2 Aston Martin driver FBL and Tier 2 Mercedes driver Fanflow. Now FBL was in Campos beforehand, and Fanflow, he was scheduled to be in Carlin. No, he was in Carlin last season, was scheduled to be in Dams for this season until he got transferred out. But FBL and Fanflow, two drivers from two different academies, being paired together in a new team, will be interesting to see what those drivers are capable of doing. Now, again, just like for Tier 2, I don't have the graphic, but It is an 11-round calendar for F2 Season 16, where, in honesty, the drivers will be seeing a multitude of repeats from the previous season. Tracks like rounds 1 through 5 of Bahrain, Miami, Spain, Baku, and Silverstone, along with round 8 and 10 of Monza and Brazil being featured on the calendar. The new tracks, though, will be an interesting twist to the season. Round 6 being Portimao, round 7 of Spa-Francorchamps, round 9 of Mexico, and the season finale in Abu Dhabi. Now, F2 Season 16 will kick off this coming Saturday at 4:15 p.m. UK, with round 1 being in Bahrain, and I will be on deck to host that event. And that, just like with F1 Tier 2, you can find the stream for that race on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/RPL_XB1. Now with that last bit, RPL_XB1, if you type that up in the search bar of YouTube, you'll be able to find our YouTube channel as well, where you'll be able to watch past races from Season 5 of F1, Season 6, and Season 7. And if you're willing to keep watching our streams as we upload every week, feel free to subscribe, and when you watch any videos, give it a like and comment on any of your favorite highlights. And there you have it. That is the driver introduction for F2 Season 16 and F1 Tier 2 Season 8. From RPL Streams, this is your host, Titan9, while saying good night and have a great night.